we can get started. That video is recording, and today we'll be talking about something very, very interesting. And today in our tech series, we'll be talking about the value proposition canvas. Yeah, so this is not usually a common thing that people talk about time and again, but it's one of the most important aspects when it comes down to starting any particular startup. It's about how you articulate your value propositions. But before we even get down to this, I think usually I always like to bring it down back to the initial BMC that we had over here. And when you're talking about BMC, you guys can let me know if you think I need to expand my screen a bit. Probably just do a zoom. So I will give it a quick zoom. Is that clear enough? Cool. Feel free, guys, to unmute. We are a small number, so feel free to unmute and ask your questions or tell me whether this is clear for a start. Okay, so when we started the whole entrepreneurship workshop, one of the core concepts that we really needed to discuss was the business model canvas. And you had to discuss the middle business model canvas closely by also going through the lean startup canvas. And as we were going through this, we realized that every business has the following 9 key components. I know you're able to combine the two canvases to come up with a hybrid one. Probably it's not as visually appealing as the other one, but at least it takes in all of them and gives you like chances to work on what worked, what didn't work. But generally, the minimum thing is we have businesses have 9 key components, and we talked about customer segments as the starting point for any business. So you always want to start from the right, define who are you building this for, right? So that's the core thing. You always want to do that. After you come up with the customer segments, you want to come up with the value proposition. So why are people using your solution to solve the problems that you've said these customer segments usually have? So I have a customer segment that has a problem, right? And then I have a solution that has some unique value propositions that solve this particular customer problem. So I have key differentiators that are slightly different from alternatives in the market. Cool. And then the rest would be now, how do I have relationships with customers? What channels do I reach them? Whether that's a website or that's a web app or mobile app, it does not matter. These are the minor ones, right? The partners, the key activities, the key resources. And of course, we talked about revenues as one of the core components as well. So usually it's this right side that's quite important, and cost structure. So for revenue streams, our last session was on business models, and we talked about the 9 common business models for typical startups, right? And we talked about the key metrics that you need to be measuring for each. And then for customer segments, I think you just define it based on your problem. And today we want to give focus to this value prop side, because it's not as simple as just coming in and saying the value prop of Uber is that there's safety and ease of payment, or there's availability of rides. It goes more in depth, because if we come up with value props like that, we end up creating solutions looking for problems, and you end up creating value props that we ourselves want, that probably the end customer does not want per se. So that's the first thing. And the lean canvas was slightly different because it started from the problem, but you can see customer segments and value propositions are not absent in any sort of business model canvas, right? So even on the lean canvas, huge focus is given on unique value propositions as well as customer segments. I will also say unfair advantages is a key thing if your business is to survive over time. And on this side, we said unfair advantages are the key resources. So that's just a preview of what you've done in the past. So let me just put it into perspective. Today, we want to talk about how we can build tech businesses that speak value to the market. Not just about starting a startup and doing your BMC. It's about understanding what particular value does your startup have on the market. And so far, here's what we've been able to cover. One of the first topics we started with was human design thinking approach. So I'm going to give this a quick green. Yeah. So you guys are already familiar with the human design thinking approach. And the big idea around design thinking was the fact that you are going on a lean cycle. And when I talk about a lean cycle, it's a cycle where we build, we measure, we learn, and the cycle continues. So every time I have an idea, I want to build the minimum thing possible for this idea to work. Once the idea is live, I want to measure, right? What are the key metrics I'm tracking to see how well my product is doing, right? And then the final thing we want to do is we want to learn off of the data I've collected from that particular product. What lessons can I take, and how can I formulate new hypotheses, right, for my next product version? right? So when you're learning is you're creating new hypotheses based on the data, and with the new hypothesis, you build again, you measure again, you learn. So the process keeps going on, and the human design thinking approach is to make sure that this process is really, really influenced by the end user as much as possible by listening to them through that sort of measurement phase and using that as your way to formulate hypotheses and build the next version. After that, we talked about a typical business, and that's when you talked about the BMC. So I'll also give this a green. And the BMC, we talked about the 9 key components for any business, and I've just gone through them right now. And last time we went ahead and boiled down on business models. Those are some of the 9 common business models for startups. This is pretty much a resource that was offered by Y Combinator on the different ways to kind of get value for your startup. How can, like, what are the different business models? Whether it's a subscription, whether you're selling hardware, whether it's a SaaS business as well. We also talked about transactional businesses. So we talked about different types of business models that tend to cover the scope of our typical tech startups. And today, and I will start this as yellow, we want to go ahead and talk about the value proposition canvas. So this is the key thing that we want to talk about. I don't think that yellow works. So which one would work? Blue? Yeah. So today we want to talk about the value proposition canvas. And this is how can we craft value propositions that differentiate our startups from competitors, but more importantly, that make customers fall in love with our product and make our startups grow over time. So if you're solving a problem well, right, there's other solutions to the same problem. So with a value prop here is we're asking ourselves, what's this proposition, unique proposition that we have in our product, right, that makes us superior to other competitors, even when you're just a small startup that does not have as many features or as many products or services like a typical Safaricom or Amazon. So that's a big question you'll be asking yourself. And then later on, we will discuss things such as building teams and running startups. Here we'll get a perspective from a typical entrepreneur. And we'll also talk about a startup financing, legal, and pitch decks as well. So how you can pitch a startup. And here we'll talk about the scope. So elevator pitches, how to structure a pitch deck, different legal structures for registering, and how to raise cash for a startup. And then finally, this is usually the interesting one for someone like me, because it's launching, pivoting, and startup growth. This is how can you grow your startup over time. It's usually marketing heavy, but more importantly, it's about listening to users more than anything. And growth is based on listening. It's not based on growth hacking that people lie to you on YouTube videos. It's based on can you listen to customers, because any good product will sell itself, but you still have to make deliberate effort to actually sell it yourself. But any good product will sell itself. Good example, Bitcoin, right? There's no marketing team behind Bitcoin, but because it was a solid product with a solid value prop and a solid problem it was solving, it sold itself into the world. Probably you could say the product design also made it more sellable, because the fact that value is increasing over time would mean that the moment people started dripping value, more people would want to join in. But what you're saying is good products will sell themselves, but you as a startup need to take deliberate actions to also sell your business as well. Get it in front of users, that's for sure. But good products will only sell themselves. Okay. So now let's get to what you talked about last time. Once again, I'm clearing this. What we said for any typical business is you always want to define your problem. What problem are you solving? Rohi has a good example with tiles, right? And the big question I had for him when he was doing the pitch is, we don't want to hear a lot of blabs about how this thing is different or where it's from. A lot of people don't care so much about the technology. They care about the problem. Yeah. What problem do I have as a consumer? And this is what you want to solve. You don't want to formulate products before you have a clear problem. Now, as you're doing the problem, we said, one, you also want to look at existing solutions. So how are people currently solving these problems? For Rohi's idea, people had tiles or they had other sort of solutions, right? And then based on the existing solutions and the problem, you want to come up with this particular solution that's rather unique, that's adding value to the market, that actually solves this problem and is in a way different from solutions or doing a better job than what solutions have. Cool. Second thing is you always want to work with customer segments. So whenever you're defining your problem is we define the problem with customer segments, not some general thing that I'm creating a payment platform that's going to be used by users. If I'm creating a payment platform, let me understand the key customer segments that I want. I want businesses. That's not specific enough. What type of businesses will use your payment platform? right? I want consumers if I'm doing Uber. That's not enough. When you're starting, you want to be specific about what type of consumers will use this best. Because the main goal for a startup is you always want to get a small number of people that love you, right? And you probably want to focus it on a particular niche. People who have this problem, like it's a bigger problem for them than any other segment. And then over time, you can go to other segments. That's how all these companies start. Amazon started as a company that was only selling books online. So they were really catering for readers, right? That's pretty much what they were looking at. And over time, you can see they're able to build architecture that can handle a mass of different products. So even for customer segments, you want to have very, very specific customer segments when starting. Who are the people experiencing this problem the most? That should be your first customer segment. That should be the customer segment you focus on. And as you think about customer segments, you need to think about what are the channels to reach them, right? If I'm building something for 70-year-olds, right, then having that sort of techie feel of having this fancy mobile applications like TikTok might not be the best, right? So you probably want to think of channels that are good for them. So let me think of example being a bank. If I'm building a bank and this bank is catering for, let's say, small businesses, I go ahead and look at who's running the small businesses. Probably it's mostly 40-year-olds. Are they conversant with tech or not? Then I can go ahead and choose my channel. Probably I always need to have physical locations where people can come in and deposit cash and withdraw, right? Or I can do it the M-Pesa model. If it's a younger generation, probably I might want to do it more digitally. Okay, but digital has become the standard for people these days, but your customer segment will define what channels you end up having. Second thing is customer relationships. Are you able to build a relationship with this customer segment over time? A good example is at Chapter. One way we build customer relationship is we have this Slack channel that everyone is supposed to be participating in. That's where you get like the daily stand-ups. That's where you get like what you're doing. That's where we'll post the link in case you're late for a session like this as well. So that's where we do our customer relationship. That's where you can even reach out to TMs as well. So customer relationships is a way you're able to interact with customers, even if that's not the typical channel. Most customer relationship sort of things will tend to be embedded into the channels themselves. A good example is, right, think about, I have a mobile application. One way to do customer relationships on a mobile application is to have in-app notifications. So that notification bar or sending notifications to users like on WhatsApp, that's a relationship WhatsApp is making with you so that you can always get back to the product. Cool. But today we want to talk about value prop, and value proposition will also go ahead and influence other key things on your business model canvas. One thing it's going to influence are your unfair advantages. Based on your value prop, you want to build unfair advantages that fulfill this value proposition. So a good example is if I'm doing a health startup, right, and I have certain value propositions. Let's say I'm building the next vaccine for AIDS, for instance, right? Now for that value prop, I think the value prop is very very clear. There's no other vaccine in the market for AIDS, right? You're trying to give people pre-immunity. You can just say that you only have to take the vaccine once and it allows you to prevent it. It's probably cheaper, or I think people can even take it more expensively. But based on that value prop that I'm saying, if I'm building a vaccine like that, then one unfair advantage I need to have is, have I done the research and development for producing this thing that I'm saying I'm going to produce? And an unfair advantage I need for that case is, can I go ahead and get the IP for that, right? Can I go ahead and get the intellectual property for that particular vaccine? That's something I'd want to find. And that will be an unfair advantage for me because only I have that IP when I'm starting. For tech startups, it's different. There's different sort of unfair advantages, right? So if Uber's value prop is, let's say, to make it easy to pay for taxis and to make sure you can always get a taxi at any time, so there's high availability as well. One unfair advantage for them would be the fact that they have uh, more taxis within their network than any other person. So that's an unfair advantage that's hard to replicate, even if someone can just build a mobile app from scratch as well. So these are some of the things we'll be talking about. And then once you have key value propositions, you want to go ahead and define your key activities. And most of these key activities are usually geared towards your MVP. That's the minimum viable product that we're talking about. And if for any reason your product needs partners, right, on the BMC, we also have a section for key partners where you can define, these are some of the key partners I need to be playing with if I'm to be able to build this product to achieve my value proposition. And then for any business, the business of business is business. So you want to have costs and you want to have a good revenue structure, business model, which we talked about like last time. Okay, so feel free to stop me anytime and ask me questions. But today we just want to focus on this number 3, right? That value proposition. And when you're talking about value proposition, we're really asking ourselves, what sets you apart from other people, right? What's this key defining factor that sets you apart from other businesses? It could be one thing, it could be a couple of things as well. But we're not just building value props from scratch, we're trying to relate them to customer needs as much as possible. Because the last thing we want to build is a solution in look for a problem. We want to base our value props from the problem stage. I get the solution from the problem, and then look for value propositions that fulfill the customer needs, right? The customer needs that go into the problem they are trying to solve in the first place. And we'll talk about this in a few right now. Cool. But now, a very, very important thing for value prop is not just about how you solve it for customers, but it's also about what sets you apart from other people who might be solving the same problem, right? So usually, whenever you have a problem that you're solving, you're not the only one who's doing it. And the value prop section is not a nice way. It's not just a nice way to make sure you're in touch with customers and to understand the jobs you need to fulfill and how you need to fulfill it for them. It's also a way to set you aside from other competitors. Most of the time, as a startup, you'll be competing with established businesses. So think about it. If we thought about like how most companies started, Amazon, when it started, was competing with typical retail stores. Those retail stores were making massive sales. Everyone just thought, if you thought of buying something, you just had to go to a supermarket then, right? But how was a young company started by one person in a random office? Let's say there were a team of 10 then. Uh, how was it able to create this market movement from people going into stores and buying into people just sitting at home and getting into their laptop and buying products from the comfort of their homes as well? So the key thing here is they solve the problem, but more importantly is they're able to differentiate themselves from competitors, even if those competitors are slightly different from them at that time. So for them, it was retail stores. So because you'll always be competing with established businesses, value props are even more important for startups. If you're doing a small business, it's sour. If you want to do a restaurant, it's cool. You probably don't need value props as much because you can have a market or that coexists with 1,000 different restaurants and you'll have your day, right? And probably you just need to improve your customer fulfillment, right? But when it comes down to startups, the main goal for a startup is to grow. How can you get to 1 million users, 100,000 users, so on and so forth? And the only way you can grow is by being different. And you're not just being different by coming up with unique ideas that use blockchain, AI, and all these sort of things. You're being different by coming up with a solution that solves a problem, but also one that has clear value propositions to the end user, right? That's slightly different from other alternatives. So Amazon's a good example there. Another good example that of a company that was able to create unique value, right, and it was able to grow from that was probably M-Pesa. So think about M-Pesa when it started. Think about 205, 206. Um, M-Pesa was competing with banks. Forget the fintech structure right now where everyone's online. That time, banks, first of all, ATMs are not as available, right? The bank branches are not as available. So imagine having a bank account which has your cash. There's no online banking architecture. And for me to deposit cash and withdraw cash, I had to always go to towns because there was not branches very, very available. The penetration of ATMs and branches was quite difficult as well. So M-Pesa was able to capture this problem, right, and understand that people need banking without banks. And their biggest unique value here was they had a network of kiosks. All these people who are M-Pesa agents who had penetrated even in places where you couldn't expect because anyone with a kiosk could become an M-Pesa agent. And all of a sudden, no bank could measure up to M-Pesa. In fact, banks are the ones approaching M-Pesa these days because they want to access users through M-Pesa as well. Like it's quite embedded. But when they started, they're competing with established banks. Let's keep that in mind. Another good example is Tesla. When it started, it was competing with huge automakers. So think about a company that's starting, and in the pocket you only have, let me not say you only have $100 million, but for automakers, that's very, very little cash. When you think about it, because you're competing with companies with a valuation of 2 billion plus. You're competing with Ford, you're competing with Volkswagen, right? You're competing with the BMWs, right? Think about all these major car brands, yeah, the Toyotas. But they had to create unique value early on so that they could be able to compete with these others. And now you're saying Tesla is the highest value automaker, even if their sales are not as much. It's because that unique value still speaks till today, even though that unique value for them was targeted to a very specific niche. That was high middle class earners, and they were selling very, very expensive vehicles. They still do today. And they carved out that niche for them, and they knew what these people wanted, and they gave them that. And that's why Tesla is one of the market leaders when it comes down to electric vehicles, and it's shaped the future for vehicles in general. Cool. Before I even continue, I just want to go ahead and ask you guys: do you guys have examples of businesses that you think are quite interesting because they captured this particular unique value that no one else was capturing in the market? Any ideas? Let's hear from you guys. Any ideas of some businesses that you guys might have heard of that have this sort of unique value that other businesses do not offer as easily? Okay, I'm going to pick on someone. Let me hear from Kevin. Yeah, any startups in mind or businesses that you've seen? Doesn't have to be a startup. Could even be an established business, but how they approach this problem was quite unique from what the existing players were there, and we can also see. So a good example is Uber. Jacqueline, could you tell us who Uber was? Let's say who was Uber competing with when they started? When the whole ride-hailing market was not there, who were the main competitors for Uber?
Um, okay, for the competitors, I'm not really sure about them, but what I'm sure is that Uber, the problem they were solving was mainly convenience when it came to transportation.
Yeah. Okay, it's a good thing. I think that's a very, very good example. Uber saw a huge gap in terms of convenience of accessing taxis early on. And that time they used to just compete with these people who had their own taxis. Some of them used to work in consortium. So there was a consortium of people that hired taxi drivers and they did it. It wasn't convenient. And because it wasn't convenient, people used to overcharge you. You go to a new city, you're at the airport, and you only have those taxis at the airport because you cannot compare prices. Just tell you your price. All of them had agreed to charge you a particular amount, right? And that used to be insane by itself. At times, you could go there at different times and you could not find a taxi in the first place. Think about getting stranded in some random new place and you don't know how to get home. It's just hard to get a taxi over there. You could only get taxis in, let's say, airports or in places such as town. But now with Uber, regardless of where you are, it's very, very easy to get a taxi and they're able to compete with the traditional taxi business. Let's just say here there was no traditional company as much. Let's just say there was just a traditional form of operation, and some people had capitalized on it by creating this sort of cartels for taxis that Uber was able to break through convenience. Rohit saying Apple. Could you go ahead and talk about the unique value and how it was different from the users at that particular time? I think I talk about Apple. Apple is quite huge because they had a time when the Mac was their main product, right? And then early 2000s it became the iPhone. So those are two different stints as well. But talk about any of them that you thought they spoke unique value.
I think the competition was more on cool. Okay, I think is it more of a competition really? But yeah, I can take it in terms of a competition in that nobody wanted to get into using smartphones, and Steve Jobs coming up with the idea of yeah, smartphones can be the next future, but nobody's still trusting them, so people are just continuing using the the button. Okay, let me call them the previous button phones.
Yeah. So their big competitor was they were competing with other big businesses. Apple was a big business by the time it was starting the iPhone. They had already created unique value by building computers before that. The Mac was their core product then. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to bring a computer to the hands of people. And they thought that the future of phones will be this smart touch way. Yeah, so the unique value they brought was this was the first people to build a typical smartphone. Imagine how hard it was using your Nokia 3310s to get into the internet. That was a time when internet was already common. Everything was being digital, right? Imagine how hard it was. But this was someone who was able to think that the proper design for a phone would be this sort of touch screen, small touch screen thing that you can use to not only just call and receive messages, but get to the internet, listen to music, a lot of different things, right? And you could even see from their presentation of the iPhone first ever time, it was that it was combining the iPod, a typical phone, right, and some features of a computer all into one. I can't remember the exact things over there, but this was unique. We had not seen a phone like that. It was quite unique. And that's how they were able to outdo players who are really, really huge in the market, Nokia, who you can't see right now, because they created a trend that everyone decided to follow on. And those big players who are there ended up dying off in the process. And that's one thing you tend to see with all this, some of these companies that speak unique value. Amazon ended up killing all these other retail stores that were bigger than it when it started, right? Those are the main competitors. M-Pesa the same. Right now, it's laughable. There's a lot of people without bank accounts, but they cannot miss an M-Pesa number, right? It's whereas when M-Pesa started, it was more people with bank accounts, and when you ask someone what M-Pesa was, they just laughed. But think about the unique value they spoke that has shifted, right? So that's a key thing, and I think iPhone and the movement it created around smartphones was quite a significant advancement as well. Cool. What I really want us to think about here is when you're starting a startup, you're probably a team of one, a team of two, a team of three, usually a team of 10 if you got lucky, right? But you're starting startups generally as three people max. And the main goal when you're starting a startup is between you three, right? What can you build based on the skills you have that speaks unique value to the market? And once you have an idea for that, is how can we build it in the most minimal way possible, right? And how we build it in the minimal way possible is we ask ourselves, what are the key value propositions we need this product to have so that we can build the most minimal, shitty product ever that solves all the customer needs that need to be solved. So it's the shittiest product that has all the essential value props. And using that, we want to validate our idea up to a point where we achieve product market fit. And product market fit is very hard to define for a lot of startups, but you will know when you achieve product market fit. When people are willingly ready to pay for your particular product or service because it's solving a particular problem for them and because the value propositions you define are actually relatable to the end customer users. So that's the goal of any value proposition canvas. We want to achieve product market fit, but we want to achieve it by understanding our customers even deeper so that we can understand what problems they're facing, right? What pains do they have, and how do they want to feel? So that we can build products that solve this, even if these products will be very, very minimal. Because when you're starting, you don't have a team like Safaricom to go ahead and build 100 different features for you. You just want to focus on the core features and core problems that these customers are facing. Cool. And this is the end goal for any startup. Most startups are just on the road to achieve product market fit. Most don't, and they end up being acquired, right? Or some just give up and go off before then. But you're just on a road of achieving product market fit. And every time you want to build a minimum viable product, right? You want to go ahead and go back to your value proposition canvas, build your MVP, get customers to use it, get feedback from them, and keep going through that similar process, the design thinking process, up until we have product market fit, where customers are readily available to give you cash to access their product. And that's the end goal, right? And you want to keep going on cycles until you get to this product market fit. And when you get to it, now your cycle is how can I keep increasing my revenues? Because now I know I've hit perfect product market fit. And that's where we talk about the value proposition canvas, a very, very important canvas for understanding your customer and being able to map out what goes into your product and how you can start mapping out your minimum viable product off of this. And the value prop canvas just focuses on the value proposition segment of the BMC, and it allows you on one side to understand your customer well. So what jobs do they want to fulfill, right? So they have a problem. For them to solve this problem, what are the key customer jobs they need to solve, right? Good example is Uber. That's a good startup. So the problem here is I just want to readily access taxis, but at the same time pay conveniently for them, right? Not always cash. I want to pay in the most convenient possible way for me, and I always want to make sure that I can get a taxi wherever I am. So that's a key problem they're trying to solve. So what are some of the key customer jobs that goes down to this? Yeah, I need to call a taxi, right? I need to negotiate fair prices with the taxi as well, right? I want to get onto my ride, and hopefully the driver is a trusted driver so they're not going to kidnap me in the process, right? And at the end of the day, I just want to pay for the service and reach home conveniently. So those are some of the key customer jobs, right? So you're trying to understand your customer here. What pains do they face when they're going through these customer jobs, right? So some of the pains you go through whenever you're using a typical traditional taxi is, think about it. Probably the driver is not trusted. Think about the issues facing Bolt right now, where we are seeing a lot of questions in regards to the trustworthiness of drivers, right? So some of the pains you want to solve is, will my product allow people? Let me not think about product here. Now we still focus on customers. That this customer wants someone they can trust who can get them home safely without any issues. They're not going to steal from them. They're not going to assault them or anything of that sort. You just want to get home in the safest way possible. Second thing is you want to pay conveniently. Utaki the problems of I give you 1,000 bob and you can't find change, or yeah, I only have cash in M-Pesa and then you tell me you cannot accept that and all that kind of stuff. People want to pay conveniently. So being able to pay, right, with no stress is a key thing in a very, very secure way as well. That's a key thing. Also, you also want to, one pain is you don't want the driver going in circles. Let's say you don't know the area and the driver decides to take you on a huge circle, anakuzungusha, right? So let's say you're going to town, there's a short way, but they know you're new to the area, so they go on a very, very different pathway as well. That's a pain. And in traditional taxis, you didn't have maps and things of that sort. You couldn't track your ride, right? They couldn't give you a price estimate when you're starting flight, you know, right? And there's an incentive to get you there fast. So drivers, just to increase their price, could even go in circles just to get there. So you want someone who you can trust, who will take you there in the fastest way possible as well, and will not lie to you in terms of distance and the like. So I'm just ideating pains off of it. And then the gains now are, what positive outcomes do I expect to receive, right, by going through this product? And we'll talk about this in an example. So what are some of the positive outcomes you expect whenever you're riding on a taxi? What positive outcomes do you expect when you're getting on a taxi ride? Like what are some of the just the positive outcomes that you expect? You expect to reach there like fast, or you expect to pay well. I think I might have mixed gains and pains. I would probably use a different example that I understand better when you get to the typical value prop. But I will go ahead and say customer jobs. These are the jobs you want to solve for the customers. Pains. These are some of the problems or blockages customers face when they're trying to fulfill these customer jobs. And then gains. These are some of the positive outcomes that customers expect when they're going through the product. So chapter would even be an even better example. So you're trying to learn data science, you're trying to learn software development. One pain that people have is they cannot afford the programs, right? So that's a good pain to have. The second pain a lot of people have is the whole stress of having to commute, right? And going to a physical place like you can learn things that you can easily learn virtually. So think about all that kind of stuff. That is a pain by itself. The third thing, when you're learning by yourself at times, you don't have a structured curriculum. So that's a pain. What are some of the gains that students expect, let's say, through a typical bootcamp like Tato that teaches you data science and software development? Probably you expect to get a certification when you graduate, right? At times you expect to get a job, right? So you'll probably get support on getting your job on graduation. So that's some of the positive outcomes you want. Like jobs is probably a key positive outcome. Being certified is a key positive outcome, right? Having a project portfolio is a key positive outcome as well. So that gives you an example of what, let's say, students who are going to a school would expect. And the school is a good example here, and chapter would be a good example for that. Okay, now let's talk about the value proposition side, right? Now, once you understand the customer profile, now you can map out the value proposition. And this value proposition corresponds to this. So the products and services I'm trying to ideate correspond to the customer jobs, right? So if the customer job that people want to do is to learn data science and to learn software development, then my product and service here will be a data science bootcamp or a software development bootcamp. If my customer job here is to do the taxis like Uber as well, then my services here will be like Uber Chap Chap. Good example, right? You want a quick, cheap, right, taxi to get you where you want to go, right? A product or service here might be the Uber app that people will be using to access this Uber Chap Chap whatsoever. So that's a good example. Based on the customer jobs, right? However, their number, you want to go ahead and articulate the product and services. And for some customer jobs, they tend to be fulfilled in between services. But at the end of the day, you always want to make sure that your products and services do fulfill all the key essential customer jobs, right? Cool. When we talk about pains, right? In the case of Uber, right? One pain is you could get a driver who's not trusted, who, let's say, goes through long routes and things of that sort. So probably what I need to do is in my Uber application, I'm going to add a route tracking. So from Google Maps, you can get the shortest distance, and as you're going on your Uber, you can track your route up until where you get. So I have a clear pain that's coming from the customer, and I'm building a clear pain reliever. And then the next thing now we have are the gain creators. So what are the gain creators in this front? So one, we have this positive outcomes that we expect, right? So a good example is when you go through chapter programs, you want to get a certification. So what will be the gain creators that we do? We end up designing our programs such that students can sit for the AWS or Microsoft certification as soon as they're done with the bootcamp. So that's a key gain creator that you're building over there. In the case of Uber, you want people expect the ride to be safe. That's an expected positive outcome. They want to arrive where they're going safely. So probably one gain creator you need to have as Uber would be to go ahead and vet your drivers before. So not avoiding it and creating a new service called Bolt Women. Probably the better thing would be, can you do proper vetting on these people even before they start becoming drivers, right? Cool. Any questions so far before we get to a real world example? Any questions? Any questions? I can see good examples here. MacBooks when they were starting. That was a very, very huge example because MacBooks when they were starting, they were competing with this huge computers that could only be owned by businesses. Only big businesses could own computers. And they started reimagining how they can put computers on desks of people. How can we make it smaller? How can it have only the key features that you need? So very, very good example there. Now we've gone through just the general scape of a typical value proposition canvas, but I want us to do it practically with a particular company example. So I don't know whether you guys have suggestions of companies that would be good to look at and we can see how we can build the value props for these companies. Companies are interesting enough with clear value props, and then we'll see what are the customer jobs, what are the gains, what are the pains, and this would be the best way to go through a value proposition canvas. Okay, any example? Anyone with a good business, right, that we would love to go through in terms of the value proposition canvas to see how this applies. And once we can go through with that, then we can see how it would work for whatever startup you decide to start. Anyone? Consultancy firms, right? They tend to be small business. I will try to avoid that. Could you tell me what exactly consulting firm you're talking about? Also, let's look for businesses that all of us tend to understand so that it's easier to work on this together. So, are you talking about the McKinseys, the Bains, and BCGs? Yeah, that would be a hard value prop canvas to do because a lot of us are not familiar with their core product stack as much. Online insurance, any example of a company in online insurance that people have done? Or like, can we be more specific, like what type of online insurance? And then we can probably take look at it from a very general perspective. You guys are short of ideas. Anyone else with a final idea? Kevin, I'm just waiting for you to expound on what you mean by online insurance. Insurance is a broad field. Yeah, medical, car insurance, all that kind of stuff. Do you have a company in mind? Any other one? Okay, Geico. Yes, let's try to make this simpler, right? We're not trying to go for complex businesses that a lot of us don't have touch with, right? Yeah. What is the simplest business we can do that everyone has an understanding of? Safaricom as a telco, that's cool, right? Any other ideas, and then we can vote on which one you want to do. Also, stop thinking so much about big business. It's better to think about it from a startup perspective, so that we'll be able to see how it relates, right? To, like, yeah, the moment we think about it from a startup perspective, we're able to kind of see, yes, how are they able to set themselves up from existing businesses. Safaricom is a good example. They are a telco, so they are pretty much well established as a big business. So some of the key startup things that we're going to articulate here, I think we've been able to overcome over time. Safaricom is a very, very old company, but still a good example. I would love to understand what was Safaricom when they were a startup? Like, what are the core things that I don't think we understand because we are more familiar with its bigger business. Whereas for Uber, we can still remember it as a small company, so it's very easy to work with it. Um, Cheki, SafeBoda, I can see SafeBoda is a good example, still startup-ish as well. I don't know about Cheki. Do you guys know about Cheki and what they offer? Okay, so let's go ahead and do it. We'll do SafeBoda then. Anyone else with ideas? All of us are familiar with SafeBoda. Just let me know if you're not familiar with SafeBoda. Feel free to unmute. We're going to do this together. Okay. SafeBoda is like an Uber for motorbikes, right? Cool. Should we go ahead with SafeBoda? I think that's fine. Let's go for it. So, guys, I am going to ask you guys to just unmute and we can work on this together, because now we are working on it. It's a good workshop. The sad thing is SafeBoda left the Kenyan market. I think they went through a lot of losses. They were burning cash. But let's see how they would have done their value proposition canvas. Okay, so just like the BMC, we will start our value prop canvas from the right, and we'll go ahead and start asking, right? What are some of the key customer jobs, right? The functional, social, and emotional jobs that customers want solved when they're using something like SafeBoda. First of all, let's define the problem. What is the problem that SafeBoda is solving?
Safe border border.
Yeah.
Rogue border borders.
Okay, what problem is it solving? First of all, let's define the customer segment you're doing this for. You're doing this from a consumer perspective, yeah? These are the riders, cool. So for the riders, what problem is it solving? Once again, one thing I will keep stating is when you're doing your value prop canvas, you want to do it differently for different customer segments. So you want to do it differently. If SafeBoda is a good example, they have two customer segments: the people who ride the boda bodas and the motorcycle owners, those people who own the boda bodas. For them to work as a startup, they need to have two value proposition canvases for both customer segments separately because they're quite essential to their product. Cool. So you're saying rogue border borders. Let's articulate the problem in a very clear way. And the best way to articulate the problem is as a dash, I need dash so that dash, right? So that I can do dash. So anyone with an idea of what SafeBoda does? We don't have as much time, so let's try rush it through. I think Kevin, you're giving it a shot. Go ahead again.
As a passenger, I need a safe rider to take me from point A to point B.
Awesome. So that's a good way to drop it down. So SafeBoda, the key thing, it's solving the problem of, it's a transportation problem, and you just want to be taken from one point to another fast and conveniently using a motorbike. That's the main thing. So, and you've said it very well. So, one, as a passenger. So, these are the riders here, right? So, as a passenger, I just want a very, very safe boda boda, right? That can take me from town to, let's say, Ngong, right? Okay, that's a bit too far. Let's say can take me from town to Westlands, right? So it's just like a short distance thing that can take me from point A to point B, and you can get there safely. Cool. Now that we understand it like that, I'm not going to write it there. I think I'll just have it here as riders. This is the safe Buddha segment that we're looking at. Other sort of companies that you can look at in this segment will be Uber. Uber. What's the? Is it called Ubanduzi? What's the name for that? Okay, so we have the Uber Boda or even Bolt Boda or Nduzi, whatever you want to call it. It's just the Uber for motorcycles, whatever it is. All those are pretty much similar products in different ways, but we'll focus on Safe Boda as it is. Okay, so let's ask ourselves, as passengers, if you want to go from point A to B, what are some of the key functional jobs you want solved for us? We know the problem. What are some of these functional jobs we want solved? Guys are thinking about it. What job am I trying to get fulfilled for me as a passenger if I'm using Safe Boda? I will pick on anyone here. Let's hear from Vini. Okay, once again, as we're doing this, I can see Asata has really dropped a nice comment. I want you to think about it from a very, very customer perspective, right? So what you as an individual, if you are the passenger, would be facing. So I will ask let's say Shadrach to explain what you mean there's some disorder that comes with random borders. And probably just bring it down to what's the job? What's the job that we want to be solved? Shadrach, and then we can hear from Vinny. Think about it. If I was to call a Boda with Safe Boda, like if I was to call a Boda Boda right now, what's the first thing I need to do if I want a Boda Boda? Let's say I want to go from home to town. What's the first thing I need to do? Okay, so one is looking for the Boda Bodas. That's awesome. So let's start from there. The first thing I want to do is I want to find a Boda Boda in the first place. So find a Boda Boda. Cool. Right? That's a motorbike business, or let me say motorbike taxi. Cool. So I want to find a Boda Boda. What's the next thing I want to do after that? So yes, the first thing I want to do is I want to find a Boda Boda. Once I find it, what's the next thing I do? As a passenger. Yeah, I like how Shadrach is putting them. Yeah, I will add this as a pain point, so it's coming. I can see that. Yes, Vinny, I'm asking you, what are some of the customer jobs that you're trying to solve for people with Safe Boda here? So the first thing we want to do is people want to find a Boda Boda. What's the next thing you want to do? Think about it. You're getting out of your house. The first thing you want to do is you find a Boda Boda. You find the Boda Boda. What's the next thing you want to do? Quick one, anyone? Feel free to unmute, guys. We're a small number. Feel free to unmute. Let's talk about this. Bratipa?
Maybe I'd want to Boda to maybe deliver me something in a business type area, like maybe groceries or something.
You'd want the Boda Boda to deliver you?
Groceries.
Okay, so let's think about this. We're not trying to change like what you're doing it for. We've said we are a passenger and we want to go from point A to point B. So we're only thinking about the customer jobs that we want to solve for ourselves, like the process. that we solve this problem for ourselves. So your bratipa, you want to go from home to town. The first thing you do is you find a boda boda. What's the next thing you do after finding one? That whatever you're saying in terms of deliveries, that would be a different value proposition specific for deliveries. But here we're still on
Okay,
paying passengers. Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'll check the price of me getting from point A to point B.
Cool.
Maybe evaluating it from my other competitors.
Yeah, so where are these competitors? So when you find a boda boda, you're finding them like when they're a group of people, yeah? They're a group of people on the street, right? And the other thing you want to do, right, I think you're saying it right, is you want to negotiate the price. And how you're negotiating the price here is I have someone with this motorbike and another one here. So this person tells me 200, huyo mwingine ananiambia 150. So yeah, I'm just trying to negotiate the price here, and I'm trying to find the cheapest price, right? So negotiate the price for my distance, yeah, for my trip. That's the second thing. So once I negotiate the price for my trip, what's the next thing I want to do? Very, very quick one. We've negotiated our price. Let me pick on Felix.
First, I'll check the. I think I'll check the if the identity matches the identity of the driver and the number plate matches the contract that has been given by
Okay.
the app.
I want you to stop thinking about it as if you already have an app already. And that's usually the common problem that comes, right? When you're doing the value prop canvas from the customer profile, we are thinking about it from we don't even have that product yet. So it's just like, how do we usually ask for boda bodas without safe boda? Right? That's how I'm asking it. So if we didn't have safe boda, Uber boda, or even Bolt Ndudi, right? How were we asking for boda boda? And the first thing is you had to get out of your house. You had to run around the places to find a boda boda. That's the first job you need to fulfill. The second thing is the moment you find a boda boda, you want to negotiate price for your trip. Yeah. Oh no, 200 is too expensive. Nifanyie 150, something of that sort. After negotiating the price for your trip, what would be the next thing you'd want to do, Felix? So think about it. There's no safe boda. There's nothing. I'm thinking from a very, very customer perspective based on the problems they solve without me as a startup being existent. Jacqueline, you want to give it a shot?
I think my next move will be to, okay, Shadrach has written it, to negotiate the payment methods. If they can accept M-Pesa or maybe cash.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm interested to ask you, if you just find a boda, think about it. You're in Ushago, right? You just ask for a boda. Do you negotiate price like even before you get onto the boda and go to where you're going? No. Do you negotiate like the payment method?
Yeah, oh yeah. Like if I don't have cash,
Yeah.
I'll ask the driver if it's okay for me to pay by M-Pesa.
Okay, awesome. So negotiate the payment method. I will give that. I usually just surprise them once I get there. So it sounds like it's a thing. Negotiate the payment method. Awesome. So they've agreed that you can pay with M-Pesa. You've agreed on a price. It's 200. What's the next step? Next step, guys. Let's finish this very, very clear one. You want to understand how someone uses the whole boda boda experience from the start to the end. Yes, Shadrach.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, I had indicated on the chat. Yeah, I think the and that was already been said, like timing, being able to find the Buddha, and then second, you prefer
bodabodas that are simpler and that use known like routes, usiende bibiwa or something of the sort. And then the payment methods, will you be paying in cash and how much will you be paying? Usipande bodaboda ufike mwisho abadilishe bei or something of the sort. Or for example with the likes of Uber and Boda, the method of paying is somewhat known or general, like lipa na M-Pesa, sio kufika mwanze kutumbwana tena. Or if you know you'll not be using the known or general mode of payment, you can just let them know in advance.
Awesome. I get you. And I like how you've listed all these things. Some of the things you've listed come under pains and gains, and we'll talk about it. But now I'm asking you guys, we've not solved our end problem. We've not gone from point A to point B yet, right? We need to arrive at our destination at the end of the day. That was the main customer job that we wanted to go. So as a passenger, I want to go from home to work using a boda, right? A boda. So as a customer, I want to go from home to work using a boda so that I am not late and avoid traffic. I'm not late and I avoid traffic. That's the whole point why people use boda in the first place. Now, what you need to do with the customer jobs is all these jobs, you need to compound them until, as a passenger, I go from home to work using a boda and I avoid traffic. What would be the next thing? I think that's a big question for you guys. We've negotiated the price, we've negotiated the payment, right? What's the next thing? I want to understand you guys from your experience of using bodas. Yeah. I think you're breaking slightly, or probably I am breaking. Can you guys hear me clearly, or is it Shadrach that's breaking? Just let me know.
I think Shadrach is breaking.
Awesome. Rohi, you have ideas of what to do next?
Well, sometimes maybe you might not have agreed on the price, so you tend to pick another person.
That's fine.
You haven't agreed on.
I think it's okay. The route still goes. If you don't agree on the price and payment method, I go back to finding a boda, and then I still negotiate the price and payment method. What's the next thing you do after all this?
I think now you've agreed, you can set off the journey.
Okay, so we want to hop on the boda and go, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So hop on the boda, and yeah, go, right? Where are you going? Yeah, go wherever you're going. Go where you are going. Awesome, that's cool. What's the next thing?
Shadrach anasema corporate bodas operate under certain rules. So sio mtu anaenda kupitisha kwa magari sijui aje. Anaendesha na adabu.
Yeah, I think Shadrach, your borderline pains and gains. I'm still concerned about the process of getting where we want to go using a boda, which is the most important thing. You have to focus on one thing at a time. So those will tend to come under pains and gains, and we'll talk about them. But now I'm just concerned. I've found my boda, I've negotiated my price, I've negotiated the payment. Let's forget the pains or gains I might face in the process. I just want to know what's the typical thing I have to do to get there. And so far we're doing well. We've hopped on the boda, and yeah. So let me just say, start your journey. So we are hopping on and you're starting our journey. What's the next thing now? I think after our journey is completed, right? What would be the next thing? So I've arrived with my boda at my destination. we're really taking it on a the most basic way possible. That's how we do customer jobs, right? Find a boda, negotiate the price, negotiate the payment method, hope on the boda and start your journey. So hope on and start your journey. And yeah, I think as you're going on the journey, there's nothing you're doing as a customer all this while. You're already on the boda. So final thing here would be arrive to your destination, right? Yeah, you might have to direct him a bit here and there, right? Probably here would be direct the driver to your destination. Yeah. What would be the next thing after this? We've directed and then we finally arrive at the destination. What's the next thing now? Guys, think about it the most basic way possible.
You pay.
Okay, you make the payments. Make payments with the payment method you had agreed on, yeah? With the payment method you had agreed on. Is there anything else we need to do after this? Anyone else? Is there something you might have missed on a typical boda journey? Okay, now there seems to be nothing else there, so let's get to it now. Now, I'm going to ask you, when people are trying to find a boda, negotiate the price, negotiate the payment method, hope on and start their journey, or do all these things we've listed over here, what are some common problems or blockages they face, right? When I'm trying to fulfill all these jobs that I have over here, what are some common problems that I face when I'm trying to get this done? You can think about it from face to face. When I'm finding a boda, what's the number one problem that I face when I'm trying to find a boda?
Let's say of a Buddha going to maybe applying through my route down that I want.
Okay, so tell me what. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not plying the route you want. Okay, so how would you phrase that as a pain?
Destination inconvenience.
Okay, destination inconvenience. Like when you're finding bodas, some bodas don't want to go through a particular route, yeah? Right? Do not have certain routes. Okay? That's a good one. That's one problem that I would find when I'm trying to find a boda. What other problem might I encounter when I'm trying to find a boda? Let's get to it, guys, so that we can finish this by 9. Shadrach had mentioned a couple of pains here that I'm going to highlight and say it's pain. You prefer a service that gets you to your point in the shortest distance or time. Yeah, sio kuzungushwa. So I will go ahead and call kuzungushwa another pain point, right? Drivers using longer routes. Okay, so that corresponds to when you hop on and start your journey and you're directing the driver to your destination. So driver using longer routes is a big pain for a lot of customers, particularly when you don't know the area. Go ahead.
Maybe the cost affordability.
The cost affordability, yeah. So expensive, yeah. Price exploitation, right? Expensive rides. You could say that. What other thing? Someone else wants to contribute to this?
Accidents.
Accidents, right? So that's a good thing. How do we avoid accidents? Accidents are mostly caused by unsafe drivers, right? Yeah, or let's say someone is unlicensed. What else would cause an accident? Right? Unsafe, unlicensed drivers, right? Whatever that is. Don't know how we call the motorbike guys. Oh. What other thing might we face? So when you're finding a boda, some bodas not serve certain routes. At times it might just be hard. You can't find bodas easily, yeah? let's say, walk a lot to find a boda boda. Yeah, you have to walk a lot to find a boda boda. That is a problem when you're finding a boda boda. You have to keep running until you see someone in Nduthi, or you have to wait, right, for a while until someone passes you. It's not the most convenient way. Negotiating price for your trip, some of them could be expensive, right? When you're negotiating the payment methods, probably they do not accept all payment methods, right? So I'll keep adding them, yeah? They accept very few payment methods. Yeah, some only cash. That's how we should be thinking about the pains here. Okay, any other one that we're leaving? Is there any problem that we face when you're negotiating the payment methods? Negotiating the price? When you're hopping on and going to a journey, we've said that sometimes they might use longer routes. At times, you might have an accident because the driver is unsafe, right?
Kuna
And
boda wengine hajui taupo. Seriously.
yeah,
Kuna maboda hajui taupo, so unapata msee amekudrop.
okay, so they get lost. Yeah, you guys get lost in the process. Yeah, you get lost in the process. That is a big problem. Any other problems you guys might face? So those are the pains you guys have. When you're making payments with the payment you had agreed on, is there any other problem that you might face there? Yeah, you might run away with the change. Think about all possible outcomes here. So if I pay with cash, you might run away with the change. There's nothing I can do there, right? I'll never see him again. I'll probably just have a number plate, and when you go to the police station, you know what they do to someone running away with the change. Yeah, you just write a report and it's gone like that. So that's how it is. So far, are you guys comfortable with the pains? Are you guys comfortable with the pains? I'm seeing someone has dropped something. Afike ageuze bei. That's a good one. That's a good one. They might change the price on arrival. Very, very good problem there. Now let's talk about the gains. What are some of the positive outcomes that I expect when I'm trying to get these jobs done? Right? A good example of a gain that I would give you is when I'm trying to hop on a boda and get to my destination. One gain that I want is I want a safe ride, so I want to wear a helmet and a reflector. Yeah, so that in case of accidents, I'm well protected. So I know there could be an accident, but if I have an helmet and a reflector, one, there's less chance of an accident, and in case it does happen, the helmet does protect me. What are the things? What are some of the positive outcomes that you generally expect? So as a customer, what do you expect this boda guy to do as you're trying to get these jobs done? That's interesting. Sikuwa najua ni Bali. Guys, let's help each other out on this one. What other gains do we expect? Think about everything. When I'm
Can you
finding,
say everything on the pains?
no, it's not everything on the pains. I really want us to separate this. Pains are like this. These are the problems you face, right? These are the sort of problems you generally face as a customer. Most of the time, when I'm building my product, I'd want my product to solve the pain. It does not necessarily need to have the gains, right? But it needs to solve the pains. That's a very, very key thing. And the gains will now tend to be the benefits. So a good example is pains tend to be features and gains tend to be benefits. So, and the chapter example is a good example. You want to learn data science, you want to learn software dev. The pain here is you don't have a curriculum, right? You don't have someone to guide you. You could say that, or like one pain is, you don't know how to apply the knowledge you're getting into real world applications. So practical problems is a thing. But then a gain would be to get a certification, or it could be to get a job at the end of the day. Keep in mind, the customer job you wanted there was to learn data science. So whether you have the certification or not, at the end of the day, people want to make sure they've learned data science. That's a core thing. But if they get a certification, that's an additional benefit, right? I hope you guys understand the difference between gains and pains here. Yeah. Whereas for the pain is they don't know how to practice some of the concepts they've had. So when they're learning, right? Or they don't know what curriculum to follow. yeah. Things of that. Those are some of the pains, right? But then again, is yeah, to get a certification. So once I'm done with everything and I've learned, if I have a certification, it's an added benefit. If I can get a job fast and I can get help in finding a job, that's an added benefit there. So these are some of the positive outcomes that you expect. So it's not necessarily a pain, but it's an outcome you generally expect because it makes you feel good about you fulfilling your customer jobs. I would say having a variety of payment options, right, is a good gain, right? I don't expect you to have all payment options available, but if you give me options of paying cash and pesa with card and all that kind of stuff, that is a good expectation, right? It makes me feel good about the entire experience, particularly when I'm making the payments. One gain as well is you want to go there in the fastest route possible. So this is borderline a pain, but the pain is you don't want a driver using a longer route. So you don't want drivers lying to you. But at times a driver is not even lying to you. Probably that's the only route they know. But you'd expect that on a boda that you guys are able to use the fastest route possible, right? We'll try see how we can solve this with our product, but we're really trying to just find the fastest route possible. We don't know how, but the pain is we don't want a driver deliberately using a longer route to waste my time. But as a gain is there a way to identify the fastest route possible? Most of us know routes to places we want to go to, but usually don't know the fastest one. Google Map helps, right? So if a driver is able to check Google Maps and get the fastest route, that would actually be an extra positive. Any other positives that we have here? When you're negotiating payment method, I think that's variety of payments. When you're negotiating price, anything else? Should we stick to that? You guys are comfortable with that? That's it? Have you put yourself in those shoes that are fully? Let me read what we have here. They can get to route cars and can find faster than they can. They can pass in between cars, so it's a sense of convenience, right? So you don't have now you're generally just describing bodas in general. I will focus on safe boda as it is. So whether you have a boda, safe boda, whatever it is, all of them will do this. But I'm focused on the whole boda experience because generally bodas as a segment will do all this for you. So you don't have to wait in jams and things of that sort. Yeah. So cool. I think it's nice to think about it like that. That's why they decided to do safe boda and not safe matatus, right? There's a reason they did that. But but I think we defined that pretty well with the initial thing. I want to go from home to work using a boda so that I'm not late and avoid traffic. That's the reason why the person is using a boda in the first place. Okay. Now, once we have clear customer jobs, right? Some of the customer jobs we've not talked about. We've only talked about the functional ones. For certain products, you also want to talk about the social and emotional customer jobs. A good example is people who are already making money are willing to pay more to solve some emotional customer jobs. So a good example is I want to use a boda that's environmental friendly, right? An electric boda. So there's people who they want to feel good, right? Because they are not polluting the environment in the process. That's a good example of an emotional one. And I think, Shadrach, your whole idea on social, one social thing is they want to avoid traffic. So those are some common customer jobs. That's a social job that you're solving. So a social job that they're solving is, in the process, is you want to avoid traffic. We've only talked about the functional ones. So you want to avoid traffic, right? That's a very, very key thing. So that's a social problem, right? An emotional problem, which I don't think we want to solve, is you don't want to pollute or things of that sort. That happens in the case of Tesla, where Tesla has an emotional customer job, where customers are interested in being environmental friendly, and it's a very, very common thing in more developed economies. Not so much in Kenya. I know you guys, when you're using your typical matatu, you don't care how much exhaust fumes are coming out there, right? You, so long as you've gotten to your destination. But in more developed economies, you get too comfortable, you start thinking about the extra things you can do for people. And some of them is like saving environment. So that's also something you can add in there. Okay, now let's get straight up to the value proposition. Now, once I have a customer profile, right, gains and pains, I map them out to products and services, game creators, and pain relievers. You don't want to imagine this from scratch. You want to imagine them through this. So, what service can I offer people so that they can find a boda boda easily? Right? The customer job we want to do is to find a boda boda. What service are we going to offer them? Let's think about products and services, guys. We don't have a lot of time. The more you guys engage, the more we can get past this. Cool. Let me pick on Jacqueline. You want to find a boda boda. What can we do now? We are safe boda. We've already understood the customer jobs, the gains and the pains. Now we're starting with customer job number 1. I want to find a boda boda. What will I build? What product or service should I offer?
Finding a boda, the app, creating an app.
Okay, so what is the app doing in particular?
It's helping the customers to easily find bodas.
Okay, application that links customers to the closest bodas, right? Connects customers with the closest boda bodas. Okay. To the closest boda bodas. Awesome. Let's go to number 2 now. I think that solves customer job number 1 pretty well. Negotiate the price for my trip. What do I want to do here? What should I build as a service? Anyone wants to give it a shot? Okay, so to save time, I'm going to give people a shot very, very fast. So let me hear the negotiate price from Shadrach, and then negotiate payment method. Let me hear from Rohi. Hop on and start your journey and drive to your destination. Let me hear from Bratipa, right? Make payments with the payment you had agreed on. Let me hear from Felix. Okay, so Rohi, what would I build so that someone can negotiate the price for my trip?
Thinking out loud. Give me a moment.
I think this was a setter's question. Probably I confused that. It was a setter then you. So probably a setter. Any ideas?
In all messages.
What? In? Or in the messages. So let's see. Awesome. That's a very, very good one. So the best way for us to handle the negotiating prices is we create predetermined parameters, right? Predetermined parameters to calculate, right, the cost, the price of a ride. And these parameters would be like the distance, so I could come with a cost per kilometer, right, and the time, right? I think you've mentioned it very, very well. Very, very nice way to think about it. That is probably the best way to solve for negotiating the price of my trip. Now, Rohi, go ahead, negotiating the payment methods.
I think being open, like listing all the payment methods available so that the customer can choose the best method that he'd prefer.
Awesome. So on our application, you're going to allow customers to choose their preferred payment method, right? Their preferred payment method. That's fine. Yeah, and we're going to give them a variety. Hopefully, we'll do that as a game creator. Now, let's go to, was it Felix now? During the journey, what are some of the sort of products and services you want to do during the journey? So you want to hop on such a journey and direct the driver to your destination until you arrive at your destination. Any sort of products or services you can offer here? Is Felix still on the call? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. For me, I think I will incorporate Google Maps.
Awesome. I like that.
Yeah.
So incorporate Google Maps to guide driver and passenger to the destination. Very, very good way to think about it. Awesome. Now, next one. Let me see who I can pick on now. We've arrived at our destination because Google Maps is going to get us there. make payments with the payment you had agreed on. What would we do now here?
Okay, making payments. Maybe we'll have a payment integration like maybe M-Pesa banks,
Awesome.
and also have a estimate calculator that will ensure the payment will remain the same until the end of the journey.
Oh, awesome. That's a good one. Yeah. So with M-Pesa and banks, and let me just call other methods. Cool. Yeah, I would say if the payment calculator that you're mentioning is pretty much part of the predetermined parameters to calculate price of a ride based on distance and time. I think that's what you mean, right?
Yes.
So we've listed that. Okay, we've done this very, very well. The social thing, which is avoid traffic, what can we do? Right? I think for avoiding traffic is, let's say our service will only be for bodas. So customers only get to choose, let's say, bodas. That could be just a general comment. So it's not necessarily what we'll build, but as you're building our network of the drivers, it's going to be drivers who own bodas or motorcycles, right? Awesome.
Boda ratings and feedbacks.
That's good. I'm going to put that as a gain creator here, right? And in fact, you've mentioned something here. Wear a helmet and reflectors, variety of payment methods, fastest route possible. At the same time, you want safety, right? You want to be safe and treated well during your ride, right? You don't want someone who's rude to you and things of that sort. And I think, Rohi, whatever you're mentioning is already a gain creator for that specifically. The best way to have a safe ride and be treated well in your ride is to have a rating system, right? For drivers. And whenever you have a rating system, you incentivize them to treat you well and to drive you safely in the best way possible. So if you don't want to be driven so fast, you'll tell them and they won't drive so fast because they know they have to be rated at the end of the day. So I would call that a gain creator. And that's a gain we might have forgot. Okay, now let's get to pain relievers now. Some bodas do not serve a certain route. What will be the best way to relieve this pain? Anyone very, very quickly? Anyone very, very quickly? Yeah. Okay, so that's nice. So let's just say, because I want us to think about it from the customer perspective, so boda connectors can choose their routes. So you'll only be connected to drivers that serve your route. Yeah. So we have an algorithm that connects you, right? Algorithm to connect you to drivers that serve your route. Okay, let's go to number 2. Let's go to number 2. Number 2, drivers using longer routes. How will we do this? How do we solve this problem? Let me hear from Vini. Anyone else with a quick idea so that we can close the call? How do we handle drivers who deliberately use longer routes? Someone? Kevin, you want to give it a shot?
For me, I think the Google Map will still play a major role because before you order, I think the app predetermines the route to be followed and then calculates the amount. So if the driver follows a longer route, you need to react.
That's a good one. Determine the shortest route with Google Maps, right? And base the price on that. That's a very, very good way to think about it. So even if you as a customer do not, you really do not follow the map, the price will be based on that particular distance. So the driver is incentivized to take you through the shortest thing and base the price on that distance. Okay, let's go ahead now. Next one, expensive ride. How are we going to do this? I think this is already here. We have predetermined pricing parameters. So here we'll have predetermined pricing based on distance and time spent. So that's a good one. Now let's go through it. Accidents. How will we relieve this pain? Unsafe drivers and unlicensed drivers. Right? Someone with an idea? Anyone? Cool. I would do this so that we don't have a bold situation again. I would vet drivers before joining the network. Right? And what I will vet them for is, one, do they have a solid license? That would be another one. Second thing is, do they have the helmets, right, for users as well? Do they have the reflectors for users? Those are very, very key things to vet people for, right? So that's a very, very key pain reliever there. For you to avoid accidents, you want to make sure you're working with licensed drivers, and you want to make sure you have the essential tools to avoid accidents, right? Or be safe in case an accident happens. If this was a car, you'd also make sure that the cars have seatbelts. Cool. Next one, accept very few payment methods. I think this is very, very obvious. What we'll do is we'll offer numerous payment methods. So we'll have a variety of payment options. Okay, they get lost in the process. I think this is solved by the determine the shortest route on Google Maps, so you can follow that. You run away with the change. How can you solve that, guys? People who run away with the change will change the price on arrival. I think the changing price on arrival will still be based on predetermined pricing based on distance and time spent, right? So how do we deal with people who run away with the change? In case you pay with cash, because it will still be an option. How do we deal with that? Anyone has an idea? Okay, we don't have time, so I'm just going to imagine an idea here. Probably what you can do is you can create a reporting system in case of issues such as change not received. That's what I could say. Okay, now let's talk about here. Safe and treated well during your ride. We say the rating system for drivers will incentivize that. Fastest route possible, I think, is this will still do the same for us. So predetermined. So once again, some of the pain relievers might be gain creators, right, at some time. Variety of payment options. I think this is something that we'll also tend to have. So we'll have payment integrations. So we will have payment integrations with different sort of options, the common options in any market. And to wear a helmet or reflector, right? What gain creator will we create over here? We'll make sure all drivers have helmets and reflectors, actually issued by Safe Boda. That's how they did it, issued by Safe Boda. In fact, they didn't, issued by us as a startup. Cool. Awesome, guys. So we've done a very, very good value proposition for Safe Boda. Now, the main thing that you understand from this is, one, we approach the value propositions from a customer base perspective. And off of this, we can now go ahead and chart our product. So because I have a clear value proposition, my next step will now be to build a minimum viable product. And I already know what my minimum viable product would be, because I know the minimum viable product I need to have needs to mostly solve the pains. That's the main thing. Most of the gain creators are things you can add over time, right? But for a start, the minimum viable product is, what can I create as a company that solves the most essential pains, right? What are the key pains that I'm trying to solve here? And that's where I'll come in here and say, I want a product that does the following services, but the core features that will go to my product will be One, the algorithm to connect you with drivers. Probably that's one of the key pains and customer jobs. Second thing, a way to determine the shortest distance with maps as well. And finally, a predetermined pricing structure, right? Cool. Probably safety is very, very important as well because of accidents. So I'd also want to make sure I'm vetting my drivers before I bring them in. And for payment options, I wouldn't say payment option is a key thing for your MVP. You could, let's say you start your MVP with one payment option and you keep increasing them over different iterations. So this is how we do a value proposition canvas. And the value proposition canvas is what influences you in designing your minimum viable product, which I'm going to talk about in a minute so that we can close our call by 50. So the key sections of a value prop canvas is we want to understand the customer jobs, which we've done. We want to understand the pains, the problems customers face, and the gains, the positive outcomes they expect. And using the customer jobs, we're going to map out our products and services. Using the pains, we're going to map out our pain relievers. Now, this will be our product features. And then using the gains, we're going to map out our gain creators, which are the benefits we offer you as a user on top of solving your pains. And once you're done with that, we're going to shortlist the core features for our minimum viable product. What are the key pains that we need to solve? What are the key customer jobs that we need to fulfill so that a user, no matter how shitty your product is, can get the job done? And that's how it is. Your MVP will not be the most gracious MVP. You're not going to create a Google search engine, right? Something as huge as that, or YouTube on your first iteration. But no matter how bad the iteration is, no matter how badly designed it is, you want it to solve the key pains, and at the same time, you want it to solve the key customer jobs. And that's the main goal of an MVP, of a value prop. It's able to articulate what are the first things that need to go to your minimum viable product. Okay, so my final chart here will be on the MVP, right? And when you talk about the minimum viable product, one, it's you want to have a minimum viable product that that kind of is related to the value props. And this value props pretty much correspond to clear customer problems, as you guys have seen. And so these are sort of the principles I will try to follow as you're building a minimum viable product. So the one thing that I would tell you when you're doing your MVP is only include the most essential features. I have said, think about it like this. You're building the shittiest product that still solves the customer's pain points, right? And I'll give you examples of this. A good example was Zappos. Zappos is an online shoe store right now when you think about it. But when they started as a business, this is what their MVP was. This guy took a piece of paper, went to Walmart or Target, which was like a cheap supermarket, took a photo of a shoe, printed it on a piece of paper, put his phone number down there, and then posted it on a poster on a public notice. So your MVP could be as simple as having a poster on a tree, and that's your MVP with your phone number. And for him, it was, if anyone called him, he would go to Walmart, buy the shoe, and then deliver it to their door. So he had solved the key customer pain points. A customer wanted to buy a shoe, right? They wanted delivery to their door. So for them is using that poster, they could call him. When they call him, they ask for the shoe. He asks for the shoe size. He goes to that supermarket, calls the customer to ask for the destination, and then brings it where that customer is. That's how the MVP was done. Over time, they're able to introduce the applications and all that kind of stuff. So your MVP does not have to become an application. It could be anything simple that solves the customer's pain points. And what you're saying here is you're trying to build the shittiest thing possible that still solves all these key pain points. So the main thing is shitty, but solves the pain points. Awesome. So think about the earliest chapter students when there was not even technical mentors. All they wanted to do was learn. So long as we had a workshop at the end of the day, even if the LMS was not there, right? Even if we didn't have like Google calendars for scheduling and all that, even if our Slack was non-existent, the main goal was they could just come in and they knew we had a workshop this time and they could do a workshop automatically over there. That's the core thing, right? Yeah, we could send them links all through. So most essential features, that's how you build your MVP. Second thing is, if it takes more than a month to build, that's not an MVP, right? Don't spend so much time on your MVP. You're trying to build a minimal thing because some of the things we've talked about when you're talking about SafeBoda, we might be proven wrong by the market. Probably consumers don't think about it like that. And that's how we're trying to build a minimal thing so that if people respond positively to it, I can build a better version of it, right? Or if someone says they don't like it, I can remove it and I know I didn't overspend time on it. I usually have a 2-week rule. When you have a new idea, take 2 weeks to implement it. Whether it's having that poster on a tree and getting calls, or whether it's building the simplest possible version of that application, right? If you really need to have it as an application, right? But even if it's an Excel sheet that can run your business over here, do it. That's how it's done, but don't take more than a month. When you take more than a month, you'll be invested in features that you don't know whether customers love in the first place. Okay. Number 3, if you can't build it, or generally if your founder team cannot build it, why are you even doing this? The whole goal of a startup is you have this unique ability to solve someone's problems. And when I talk about unique ability, it could either be you experience the problem yourself, or you have significant market experience, right, in that particular industry. So a good example is if you want to start a health startup, having significant experience in the health industry for whatever I want to start is more essential. Whereas if I'm trying to start a safe border thing, the best sort of thing would be probably I've built applications for transport before, or probably I'm just a user who hates how I have to look for borders. And because I understand the problem very well, I have created a team of people who can solve this problem because I identify to it, and I have the technical skills to, let's say, build an application that can solve some of these problems. So if you can't build it, or generally your founder team, why are you doing this in the first place? Think of another idea. Think of ideas that you are valuable to solving that problem, because this minimum viable product will go through a lot of changes over time, and you don't want to contract agencies to do it for you. They're not as invested. So be the one to build that shitty product by yourself. Cool. And then the final 2 things I would say is for your MVPs, you want to do the things that do not scale. Only scale once it is painful to not to scale. So for the case of Zappos, putting a poster on a tree and receiving phone calls is not scalable. When you have 1,000 customers, you cannot do that. You cannot receive 1,000 calls and want to deliver that for them. That's why they had to build an application at the end of the day. But when he started, he did the thing that cannot scale. Don't overthink things. Do the things that can't scale. And then the moment I now have 1,000 customers and it's painful for me to keep receiving phone calls like this, I create an application where someone puts in the delivery address and I can link it up to different delivery personnel that can do that for me. I can build the infrastructure around that. Don't struggle putting an M-Pesa integration to your product. Just tell people, Lipa na pay bill. As simple as that, right? It's not scalable. You'll be receiving a message or they send you a confirmation message. And the moment it's too hard to be making these confirmation messages, then you can build the M-Pesa integration as well. So that's a way to do it. And then the final thing is focus. Your product should be focused on the few people who would love it. So when you're doing Safe Border, we're asking ourselves, who are these few people who really like Boda Boda so much that we can solve the problem for them, right? And once these people love it so much, and I use them as my testing, even if it's only 10 people, but if they love and I'm solving a problem that's specific to them, then I'll keep talking to them frequently. And once they love it even more, because I'm getting feedback from them consistently, then I can expand it to other people. A good example is Discord. When Discord started as a messaging platform, it was only for gamers. No one else. When they were doing their product iterations, they only talked to gamers. They didn't care about anyone else. It was, yes, I'm on my PlayStation, I want to talk to people I'm gaming with, right? These are the features I need then. And then over time, these gamers popularized the platform that now even we at Chapter are using Discord sometimes. So think about it. Focus your product on a particular segment. And over time, you're going to grow it. But focus is quite key because few people who love it, talk to them frequently, even if there are only 2 of them. In fact, it's better. They give you very, very essential feedback. And some of the interesting MVPs you can see would be Zappos, just a poster on a notice board. Or Amazon, when they started, they focused their product only on books only. When the website was only a 1-page website, Amazon only used to do books, but now they're all over the place. So you really want to focus with your MVP. Think about Airbnb. The MVP was the 2 founders decided to rent out their house for a night. So they went to a conference. Someone did not have a house. They told them, you come to our home, right? We have an air mattress, right? So they went ahead and got an air mattress, pumped it for them. And then in the morning when they were leaving, they had breakfast. And when they were having breakfast, they were able to talk to that user very, very well. And they were able to understand, how difficult it was to find a hotel in that point. And over time, they ended up building the application you now call Airbnb. So MVPs are very simple things that are focused on a particular segment. So for them, they were focused on people attending conferences. So they knew that if they went to the conference site, they could get people who did not have hotels, because during conference times, hotels were overbooked. And then they decided to only put a poster, or rather a notice, saying, if you don't have a house, you can come live in my house for like $10 tonight, and you can also have breakfast with us. And they only had an air mattress. And because these people are desperate, they came, they slept, they talked to them, and then over time, they're able to build the application around it and start getting other people to offer their house space. So that's how to build an MVP. And all this starts by building a minimum viable product. And that's all we have for today, even if we've taken way longer than I wanted us to. Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, awesome. So there's no questions from you guys. Thanks a lot for your time here. Let's looking forward to the Career Dev Workshop on Thursday. Feel free, I think we have a personal finance talk, and I hope this was impactful to those of you who want to think of starting tech startups or any sort of startup in the future. Our value proposition canvas is the next layer to your BMC to make sure your business is as valuable as possible. Thank you very much, guys, for your time.